Hi there, and thank you for joining us for this very important topic, the impact of the onset of menopause on potential Alzheimer's and dementia risk. My name is Sira Boats. I'm an occupational therapist and a dementia specialist. And here at Boats Memory Method, we are bringing you hope on the dementia journey. And today I want to talk about this hot topic, excuse the pun, because for those of you who have gone through menopause know that hot flashes are not fun. And so today we're going to unpack some of the research, some of the latest research that I found on menopause, our hormones, and why we could be at the increased risk for Alzheimer's dementias, but most importantly, what can we do about it? There is a lot of different studies and different opinions out there, and I really liked this study that I'll share with you today, and it was published through the PubMed, the National Institute for Health, so the National Library of Medicine. It was published September of 2024 through Curious, C-U-R-E-U-S, and the topic of the article is the influence of the onset of menopause on the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and dementias. And this was an extensive literature overview, which I love. In other words, they took literature from across the world and they looked at different researchers and what they found in connection with menopause, in connection with the changes in the hormones, and then the prevalence for the onset of Alzheimer's dementias, and what do we do about it. We don't have time to unpack all of the articles or even this whole article, but I did want to give you some highlights. For myself as a female, I think that we don't talk about menopause enough. I don't think that maybe our physicians may not have enough time to talk about it, or that there may be so many conflicting messages out there that it's hard to kind of untangle what is prevalent to you. So from the perspective of a female and from the perspective of a daughter of a person living with dementia, so my mom lives with dementia, I think this is a super important topic. Also, the fact that I've gone through menopause and I have experienced what females in peri-menopause and menopause go through, and I'm doing right now, I'm on that menopause journey. So bear with me as I share with you some of the things that I researched and that I found very interesting and that I think our audience will find interesting as well. So number one, let's just talk about the two phases. There's peri-menopause, which is your final years of your reproductive life. And that can span anything from 5 to 15 years. There's no real good definition of even what that look like, what all the symptoms are. It is individualized for each female, and depending on the speed of the decline of your reproductive life, that may look different. Then you have menopause. Menopause is when your ovaries are no longer ovulating, so your reproduction has stopped and you're no longer having a period. So that is then identified as being in menopause, and that can be confirmed through a blood panel to establish where you're at in your hormonal phases, which will then accurately be able to tell you that you are now in menopause or not. So let's talk about why menopause could be an important trigger for Alzheimer's dementia. The fact that you go into menopause does not mean that you are going to get dementia or Alzheimer's. It just means that your risk changes because of the drops in the estrogen levels. So the drop of that estrogen levels may accelerate the onset of the Alzheimer's dementias. And in this particular study, they talk about if you go through menopause early, and they identify early or define early as before age 40 or even before age 45. So anything that happens before age 40 and then up to age 45 is considered early menopause, and that population is at a higher risk. So whether it's natural menopause or surgical induced menopause, that will put you at a high, high risk for dementia. So 2 types of reasons why you can go into menopause. Number 1 is just the natural cycles that's changing in your body, and you're naturally going from being a productive female to a non-productive, well, not, you're still productive, you're still working, but not being in your productive life cycle. That is a natural progression of menopause. Surgical menopause is when the female organs such as the ovaries and the uterus are being removed. When only the uterus is being removed and the ovaries are left, then for a while a female may still have normal hormone cycles, which supports that estrogen levels, but over time the ovaries may shut down as well. Someone who has had a surgical menopause or experiencing a surgical menopause are at a higher risk for developing a dementia, Alzheimer's, versus somebody that's gone into menopause naturally. So very important to understand those 2 definitions. Now, we talked about estrogen. Why is estrogen so important? Estrogen is crucial in your brain metabolism, and estrogen supports your energy, so it supports glucose transmitting in the brain. It supports neuroplasticity, so in other words, our neurons' ability to repair and to form new neurons, which supports our neuron activity. And then the cognitive function, so that your ability to think, to judge, to do critical thinking, to form new memories, to process information correctly and at the correct speed. Those are all pieces of cognitive function. So when your estrogen decreases, you are losing some of that neuroprotective properties of the estrogen. Another important role of the estrogen is that it is an anti-inflammatory agent, and it's a powerful antioxidant. And between the estrogen and its alpha isoform, it supports our neuro health. And then absence of that estrogen, and when it declines, then that speeds up the neurodegeneration because of an increase of inflammation in the cells. So that's why it's so important that we support our estrogen in our body. Now, hormone replacement therapy then focuses on supplementing your body with different kinds of estrogen. There are some natural options, and then there, of course, are some human-made options that you can take. And this is something that you have to discuss with your physician. And if your physician is not supportive of you hormone replacement, or maybe they just don't have good insight into it, seek a physician that understands women health, seek a physician that understands cognitive well-being, and get a second opinion, get that blood panels done to determine where you're at with your hormone levels, and to make some good informed decisions on the type of hormone replacement therapy that you would like to try. And like I said, there are so many different kinds. I do want to touch on some of the symptoms that you may experience when you go through menopause. And of course, this can vary. It can come and go. It can fluctuate. But some of the important things that happens is sleep disturbances. If we think about it, our cells regenerate when you sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not resting. Your brain cells are not regenerating. This is where inflammation also starts to increase in our cells. This is also, think about when you're sleep deprived, maybe when you had young children in the home, maybe you were traveling, maybe you're an ex-soldier and you were sleep deprived. Sleep deprivation does so much to our cognitive function. It does so much to our psychological function. So it can cause depression, it can cause anxiety if we are not sleeping well. So supporting your sleep is huge during menopause, and that's something you have to discuss with your physician. Something that can impact your sleep, something else, are the hot flashes that we're talking about. That is temperature deregulation. It's core temperature changes. There are not a lot of studies that explains why that happens. A drop in estrogen is not enough of an explanation. But that definitely disrupts sleep, and it also can just disrupt physical well-being during the day. Then there's personality and mood changes. There is cognitive changes like the brain fog that many of our females experience. There are sexual dysfunctions that starts happening. And then also vertigo may be one of the symptoms that females may experience. All of these symptoms combined, if you're not getting support from a physician or from a female expert, if you don't get support from your family, if you don't understand the type of symptoms that you're going through, then it's going to impact your psychological and your physical well-being. If the flip side of the coin, with a drop of estrogen, when your energy levels are not being sustained because your glucose transmitters in your neurons is not being supported by the estrogen, so your energy levels are disrupted, your mood is disrupted, you may feel more anxious, more depressed, your appetite is changing, maybe you're overeating or craving other foods, now you're gaining weight. So the flip side of the coin, if we're not just looking at the drop of the estrogen, but we're looking at the changes in the mood and the fact that now maybe I don't have the energy to exercise, or I don't feel like exercising, or my eating habits are changing, which may impact my blood sugar, it may impact my blood pressure. Now, those factors are also going to impact my cognitive health. So we're not just looking at the lower estrogen, but we're also looking at how can we maintain the lifestyle choices that we used to make before our estrogen dropped, before we entered into menopause, and before our whole system kind of turned its back on us, right? All these changes are happening where we don't have control over it. Suddenly you're putting on weight in places that you didn't before. Suddenly you don't have the energy. You are not sleeping. You're feeling depressed. You may be feeling isolated. You don't feel like yourself. So this is where it becomes so important that we stay in a good exercise routine. We make good dietary choices, not because that's what I feel like eating, but because I know that food is medicine, and that I know that if I make these choices, that I will combat the changes in my estrogen. I will combat the changes in my brain function simply by making a choice of going into the sun and getting some sunlight, and which will boost my mood. By drinking enough water, which I know will flush my cells, by going outside and going for a walk, which I know will boost my cells with the oxygenation, which is going to improve my energy. So just to give you some hope during this journey on menopause, get your blood panels done, talk to an expert about your estrogen levels, but then at the same time, take a good look at your lifestyle, look at your sleep, how can you support your sleep, look at your exercise regime, and make choices that's going to support your well-being, because it will pay off in the long run. So to all my sisters out there, we've got this. And if you want more information, follow us on this YouTube platform where we try to bring topics that matters to you and bring you hope. Also go to our website, www.boatsmemorymethod.com. You can also sign up for courses there, and you can sign up for our free newsletter.